Good morning. My name is Claudius Noack. I work for Lufthansa Industry Solutions, which is a small company with like 2,000 employees inside the big Lufthansa group. But we're not just working inside the Lufthansa group, we're also working outside in the normal industry. For example, wind parks. We're heavily invested when it comes to predictive maintenance or automated drone inspections or stuff like that. But what do we need for predictive maintenance? You need a lot of data. And where does that data come from? It comes from sensors, for example. And how do you connect those sensors? You're far out, maybe in offshore wind parks. So how do you connect those? 5G might be a thing for that. I want to talk to you about the 5G project that we did just this year. So at first, I'm going to go into very quickly into some 5G features that you should understand, and I'm going to tell you who do you have to talk to when you want your own 5G network, because that's the own goal. Having your own 5G networks, maybe in a wind park, maybe in an offshore wind park or onshore wind park. So what's the main features? 5G is not just a new mobile network like you guys have 4G phones now with you. Maybe you have like 5G phones, but it has three major features built inside. The one thing is it's not just built for a lot of people. Like most mobile networks in the past or currently are like for 1 million people. If, I don't know, Telecom sets up a new network around a stadium, they want to have a lot of people inside that network and they want to have it big. But with 5G, you can create small cells. That's different. You couldn't do that before with 4G. That's the one thing. You'll see that later in the project that I'm telling you about. Second thing is, there are new frequencies available. You maybe heard about the auction last year that Telecom and Vodafone, they are bidding for a lot of new frequency, but there's a slice in this frequency from 3.7 to 3.8 that you can have for your own wind park, for example, or for other stuff for your own industry. Like Lufthansa, we applied for that slice and have our own frequency. But again, I'm going to explain to you later why that is so important. And the third thing, and that's especially important for you in the wind industry, but also for us and for the project that I'm telling you about, is beamforming. What does beamforming do? So usually if you have an antenna and it's a normal mobile antenna, it emits the beam in the same direction, the same amount of signal strength. But now you come with your end device, let's say a mobile phone for now, and you want to use a lot of data. Then inside the antenna, there are multiple antennas and they focus on you so that you get a very good connection, a high download rate, low latency and stuff like that. That's only possible with beamforming because it beams to you. That was not possible before with 4G or 3G. And I'm going to show you why we needed that as well and why you might need that. But we have to talk about a different setup. So this was only 3 features. But with 5G, we have another thing, another new setup, how we can set up a mobile network. So far, maybe you were using in your wind parks your normal phone or normal end devices, and you were using that inside the public network. You can also do that with 5G, true. But then you will compete with all the other devices that are currently inside that network. Maybe there's a guy running around with, I don't know, Pokemon Go or stuff like that. Maybe there's somebody using Netflix, intensively data, and then you compete in that network, in that public mobile network. With 5G, there are different possibilities. First, you can talk to the network provider, the MNO, that is the mobile network operator like Telecom and Vodafone, and they can give you a slice of the network for where you are. Maybe in your wind park. So this slice is reserved for you, and especially for you, and you will have your reserved data rate or whatever you need. That's the first option, but you still need that carrier. You still need that MNO. Second option is, you might even get your own antenna. Let's say in the wind park, on some of the wind engines, you put some antennas, or you put some antennas on your base station. And then all the data that you need will be directed just for you, with your antenna, within your antennas, which is also great because maybe you don't have any reception. I guess in offshore wind parks, you might not find a reception all the way. That is very common. But it's still connected to the MNO. So you have basically now two networks. One is separate with you, with your own hardware. So you need to talk to the hardware providers as well, which is like Huawei, Ericsson, Nokia, etc., those big companies. But there's still this public network. So that's a hybrid network. You still have that mobile public network and your own one with your own hardware, with better reception. This is also good, but you still need the carrier. You still need Telecom, Vodafone, and you have to talk to them, and they will manage your network. But what you really want, and that is very new with 5G, you want your own network. You want to manage your network. It's not that complicated. And you want to have it for yourself. Why? Because it's secure. If you have your own network and it's not connected to any outside world, you will be responsible and you have the safety just for yourself. And this is what is new, and this is what we have done. We built for Lufthansa in Hamburg, we built an own network, a campus network not connected to anything outside, because our data is so important for us. And this is managed by us. We don't need any carrier. We use our own frequency. We use the hardware that we had to buy. Our one partner is Nokia, the other partner was Vodafone, and the other network that we also set up with a carrier. But this is just for yourself. And this is very good because, again, you're not competing with any other hardware. And when it comes to wind parks, there may be, I'll have some examples later, it may be very important that you're not competing with other devices inside the network. And then there's one last thing that you should understand. 5G right now is at a state, especially when you're now using it, is not working by itself. Right now, you need the modus 5G non-standalone. That means there's always a 4G antenna 2 in your network. What does that 4G antenna do? It just does the handling. Let's say you have a new device, a new camera, something for a 5G antenna, and you put it inside the network. 4G is doing the handling, and the data stream itself will go through the 5G antenna. And this is not very efficient because you need a second antenna, you need second hardware for the 4G network. And now comes the new part for this year, and this is where Lufthansa was a very early adapter. From this year on, you can build a standalone network, SA 5G network. And this only works then with the 5G equipment. And this just happened this year, and Lufthansa was the first company outside of Asia who built a standalone 5G network in a real industry. For sure, you'll have laboratories and stuff, and they are using those things earlier. But we are using this because it helps us, and I will show you how it helped us, especially through the Corona crisis. Just for you to understand the basics. If you want to set up your own 5G network, who do you have to talk to? There are a lot of players. For example, those MNOs and NSPs, because you need hardware, you might need a carrier. But there are other players like chip providers, because if you want to do specific stuff, let's say maintenance in your wind park, you might need specific chips for your hardware that you are using, and those chip providers are now developing. They are now developing because 5G is so new. So if you talk to them right now, they know what you need. And then they can provide you the chip, let's say in a couple of months, that will help you. But there are other partners. For example, for us, the equal partners were like Airbus or the airport in Hamburg. You always have to talk with your neighbors if you're doing 5G and see what they are doing, if they are also using 5G or 4G or stuff like that. And there are also some partners which I found very interesting are those consulting companies like Claudius or TÜV Rheinland or WINDFORCE. WINDFORCE is an interesting company. For example, if you want to use a lot of sensors in your parks and you want to connect them to a mobile network, then they all need a SIM card, right? If you want to be connected to a mobile network, you need a SIM card. And this once they give you a SIM card for 10 years, only 500 megabytes for 10 years, but it costs 10 euros. Not a month, not a year, 10 euros for 10 years. So, which is very economically good for you because you can use a lot of sensors and connect them. So those are the stakeholders that you have to talk about. I will show you a quick picture how easily that could be set up. This, for example, was in February. You see the small white device, looks like a router. It's actually a 5G antenna. It does not have to be that big as you see outside. Yes, we have a big one installed as well in another building, but we wanted to have different setups, not just the big setup. So this is how it might look like for us. And a funny thing for our marketing department is if you have your own mobile network, it has your own name. It's not called Vodafone or Telecom. So our marketing department likes that it's called Lufthansa Technik. But this is mainly for the marketing department. So now I'm going to explain you our two projects. We had one project where we do a remote table inspection. What Lufthansa Technik is doing, they are maintaining aircrafts with the airlines. And usually the airline has to come to our place and maintain them with their engineers and our engineers together. And they look at the small devices like an engine, parts of an engine. Oh, is there a millimeter scratch? Like on your wind turbines. Are there scratches? What we did with remote table inspection, we have a high quality video stream, and we stream that to the customer with some documentation behind it. We stream that to the customer, and the customer is able to do this maintenance with us together. But we are moving a lot in that moment through our hangar because the engine is there, parts are there, so we are moving a lot, and that does not work with Wi-Fi very well. With the 5G network, this was possible for us to achieve, and this is very important, especially for us right now in the coronavirus, because most of the engineers from those airlines, they're not allowed to travel. We at our base have restrictions who is coming on our base right now. So just with that remote table inspection that we have set up with the 5G network, we were able to maintain our engines, maintain our aircrafts any longer. We couldn't do that before. So this is the one project. The second project is where we used beamforming and one big antenna actually, because we are doing augmented reality while we are refitting an aircraft. What Lufthansa Technik is doing is, if you have an empty aircraft and you want to have, I don't know, 7 showers. There are people who want to have in their private aircraft 7 showers. So Lufthansa Technik is placing them inside. And this is a very intensive thing. It takes sometimes like 2 years for an aircraft. And we want to help our engineers to see where things have to be inside that aircraft. And usually in the past, it was that way that you had paper or you have a laptop and it's on that laptop. Now we are doing that with augmented reality. So I'm just looking around inside that cabin. Ah, yeah, there's the shower and there I have new chairs and stuff like that. But for that, you need a lot of data again. And we want to have that data live inside that aircraft that is in our hangar. And therefore, we have the 5G network inside beaming in that aircraft with that beamform to create a high data stream. And I will give you results of those networks. So this is the 3 new things that we use. We're using our own frequency, we're using small cells in the other project, and we're using this beamforming. So I'll give you some real results from that existing 5G network that we have. So first thing, in the media they are talking about, yeah, 5G can do 10 gigabits and less than 1 millisecond latency. We tested it, and what we had was, okay, yeah, 1 gigabit outside the airplane, and we didn't know how big will that loss be when we go inside the airplane. It's not that big actually. 5% loss going from outside to inside, totally fine. But what we also wanted to know, and now it's getting a little more interesting for you perhaps, how far can we reach with that antennas that we have installed? It was not meant to be for a very far distance, but we just wanted to check. So this is the hangar where our 2 aircraft is, one of our hangars. And we checked inside that hangar, even though the project was only for that one airplane. So we checked inside that aircraft. This is download speed, just download speed 5G network that we have set up at our campus. And the antennas on the left side, you see, oh, it's still on the right side, we still have 700 megabits per second in download. Okay, what happens afterwards? So we checked the hangar beside it. Oh, still 300 megabits per second. This is pretty good, even though we didn't want that. We wanted to have it inside the airplane. So let's check what's coming outside of the hangar. So this is the hangar where the airplanes are. The left side of that hangar is where the 2 airplanes are, where we wanted to have the 5G network. Well, we just went around. We just went around to see, okay, how far can it be? And the setup that we had that was not supposed to be for a long distance was easily 350 meters wide and still a good connection. The widest that we were able to go was like 500 meters, 250 megabits per second. So this is what we really did and what we measured. but this is at our installation in Hamburg. So how could that be good for you? Let's coming back to what I was telling you earlier, predictive maintenance or autonomous drones that you can use for inspection. Let's assume you have repair to do and you want to talk to people onshore. You're offshore and you want to do repairs. Why not have a 5G network? And you can do the remote table inspection like we are doing it. You have a video stream to your customers. You don't need all the experts being on site all the time. But with a high video stream, you can do that. Maybe even with augmented reality. But you need a good connection for that because you need so much data. Or maybe you want to have your drones flying around. They also need to be connected somehow. You might want to have live video streams. Or coming to your sensors, coming to predictive maintenance, if you have a lot of sensors on those, you know how expensive it is to connect all those sensors, right? There are hundreds of thousands of euros just cabling all those sensors if you want to do that predictive maintenance. Why not connect that to the same 5G network that you're using for telephone, so not using any Tetra anymore? Why not using it for remote table inspection and for the sensors? That can work. But I know there are very long distances. I just showed you, okay, we can do 500 meters perhaps with other frequencies, but we didn't test that. With other frequencies, like lower frequencies, you could easily go to 10 kilometers. Not with the same data rate, but with higher data rates, for example, than 4G. There are studies for that too. So this could also work for you. So just in the end, if you are interested in those 5G networks for yourself, what would be the steps to do for you? The first step definitely has to do, what is my use case? And I'm telling you, if you only have one use case, it might be too expensive. Seriously. So you have to figure out a way if you can use different kinds of use cases for your 5G network, because it costs a little. We can talk about that later. Maybe he has a question for how much does it cost. Where can I use it? Then I told you a little about the technology. I could talk for hours about the technology on 5G or mobile networks. What kind of technology is the right thing for me? Is it that hybrid network? Do I need beamforming for that? I guess you guys do if you have very big distances. Who is the right supplier for me? And that is a very, very important thing because most suppliers right now are for public networks. As I told you, they want to have 1 million people inside their networks and stuff like that, but that's not your use case. So you really have to find the right supplier for your solution. That takes a while. Last step, you have to prepare your network. What kind of network? Non-standalone, standalone. You have to talk to the Bundesnetzagentur. I know you do that, but now about some other frequencies, because you have to apply if you want to do that. You have to apply for that frequency, that special frequency that is just for you, where nobody else can interfere with that frequency, which is very good. And if all those 4 steps worked, then you can think about a campus rollout. And this is something that we have done in the past. So we did all those 5 steps. And if you want to have those campus networks installed as well, don't do the mistakes that maybe other people also did, just installing it. And we had a lot of problems in the first phases of our project. But now, if you find a good partner for this, you might be able to have a campus network, having your sensors connected, having good predictive maintenance. That might be something for you. I have a lot of data, a lot of measurement for this. If you are interested in 5G networks, I'm still here afterwards, so just talk to me. I will be around. Yeah, that's it. Very quick, a big project, talk in 15 minutes.
Yeah, Dr. Noack, first of all, I would like to say thank you. Very interesting, and I think that's nearly the future we saw today. But also some questions left, I think, also to the audience. You have any kind of questions? Okay, then I again have 3 left. If we're taking the communication itself and digital for sure, and sometimes it looks to me it's not quite new, but maybe in a nutshell, the difference between Tetra communication as well, what's kind of digital, and 5G, how big is the gap if we're taking the next generation of communication?
So actually there's a big gap. It's not just frequencies, yes, for sure, but what can you do with Tetra? You can talk. But what can you do with 5G? You cannot just talk, you can do so many more things. So if you want to replace Tetra with 5G, and that's the only thing that you want to do, then I'd say stay with your Tetra, even though maybe one channel might be jammed with, I heard stories of people jammed the Tetra channels and they were not able to talk anymore to other people. With 5G, you can have multiple talks at the same time, but again, I would think you need a second use case and not just Tetra for using 5G.
Okay, thank you. Then the acceptance of the of 5G, and then bring it to the working processes from the employees. So how is the acceptance, and what's the idea to, or is it or was it that COVID maybe helps you a lot on this topic?
Seriously, every week I talk to people, not just in my company, but outside when they know I do 5G. But 5G caused COVID-19. And it was like, no, seriously, let's come down to earth. It has nothing to do with that. And then like every week people are afraid of, there is a new beam forming. It's a horrible word, and this causes some illnesses. Right now, 5G is using the same frequencies, like your Wi-Fi is using 2.4 or 5 gigahertz. Our 5G is using 3.6, and the wattage is always the same. 5G is not worse than 4G or 3G. Like, if you are afraid of 5G, then you have to be afraid of all the other mobile communications as well. And the most hazardous thing that you have is the mobile phone in your hand. If you're making a call, this is the biggest emission that you can have. The antennas are not. So this is something that I have to address every week with somebody. But if we sit down and we just calculate, I like numbers. So if we just calculate what is hazardous and what is not hazardous, they all come down to, oh yeah, okay, it's no difference. But there are people who are in general afraid of mobile communication.
Okay, thank you. And then last question: the cost structure of these to implement 5G, and then also the timeline. We are talking about implementation of a decade, of 2 decades, or is it tomorrow?
No. So we set up the network this year, but it took us a very long time. It took us like a year because it was so new. Right now, I think for an offshore plant, we're now talking to some customers for offshore wind parks. And I think we could realize that in half a year, roughly. I had a timetable there. It really depends on your use cases, actually. And the cost structure, I told you he was going to ask about that. The cost structure can be eventually just your end devices. This would be like the public network. We are doing this. We have a project where the customer only pays for the end devices and nothing more. But it could also be hundreds of thousands of euros, but cheaper than the cabling. And this is the important part in offshore wind parks. So we have set up networks that costed like 200,000 euros, stuff like that. So in between is the reality for you.
Okay, excellent. I would like to say thank you.
Thanks.
Very interesting.